Looking good. All right, so we are broadcasting here out of Lander, Wyoming from the Herrmann Global headquarters. So my name is Florian Herrmann, and I hope you enjoy us for the next hour or so. We do have every once in a while we have a fireside chat with our team. So and we just always want to share some thoughts and have some good conversations about things. And so this is our very first Facebook Live session to kind of tell our clients and our friends about what we're doing, and we kind of really want to figure out a specific topic we want to talk about. So yeah, it's 3 o'clock. So fireside chat sometimes is with a beer or with some coffee. So 3 o'clock is a good time because either you have a beer or coffee. You know, everyone please feel comfortable. So yeah, so I think maybe we should start this a little bit who we are, right? So I mean, a lot of people know us from our customers or our friends, but maybe not everyone does. And the ones that I think is this travel exchange podcast dedicated to is just people who want to learn about the industry on travel and what's happening. It's a very special and interesting time right now. What's going to happen? So I'm very proud that we have a company here as a tourism marketing firm here in Lander, Wyoming. And what's really exciting is we have an amazing team, and sometimes I don't want to really have the monologue so much on it, but I'm excited to have the whole team here. So I think we should maybe just introduce a little bit who these people are in the room. So you can just walk around and just start with this gentleman in the back here, who that is.
How are you? My name is Adam Bridgeford. I'm the account director here at Herrmann Global. Deal a lot with the business development side, helping clients develop strategies for how best to promote their destinations, kind of use the tools in our tool belt to find the audience that's most interested in visiting their destinations, and then helping connect correct messaging with that audience.
Hi, I'm Casey Adams. I'm the Client Services Director. I pretty much just work to keep the programs that Adam sets up online and keep an eye on quality control, make sure that the timing's right, make sure that everybody's happy and interested travelers are getting great information about these destinations.
Hi, I'm Danella Myers. I am the Marketing Director, and I help with client campaigns, making sure they're all running smoothly, and I also help with some various other marketing things for our clients and for our own Visit USA Parks platform as well.
Great. Hello, my name is Florian Herrmann, and from the accent you probably can hear I'm not from the United States, I'm from Germany, and I'm the owner of Herrmann Global and CEO. And yeah, so came here a long time ago to this beautiful country, and I think what's very special about us is we live in a small town. We are a digital marketing firm, but we really are not that shiny to the outside. We just live in a small town. It's called Lander, Wyoming. We are nearby Yellowstone and enjoy tourism, and that's really our passion. And I think that kind of brings the whole team together. I think we all kind of love tourism. I think we specialize a lot in tourism marketing, and so we usually spend an hour just chatting about things. But today we want to just talk about a topic that is probably very relevant right now, and we did with the travel exchange podcasts as well a lot about COVID. So I think the last few sessions we did, I mean, maybe you remember the travel exchange podcast. We have a travel exchange newsletter. We just share a lot of industry thoughts that we figure out what's really relevant. And we talked a lot about technology. We talked about what tourism destinations are facing right now. We've talked about the virologists. Is there some kind of vaccine in place sometime to see if travel resumes? I mean, these are really challenging questions. This is a very challenging time for all of us as well as a company. I mean, we adjust campaigns, we adjust messaging every day to see kind of what's the best situation on it. So today we want to talk a little bit about responsible travel, right? I mean, that's kind of what we picked. And responsible travel is really a term that was in the past about, so like it was like, okay, responsible travel means, oh, I want to make sure I spend the money on the right person. I want to make sure I don't reduce, I want to make sure I reduce trash, right? I'm really trying to find a destination to have a cultural sensitive perspective, right? So like protect indigenous nature, protect culture, protect environment. Now kind of the tone of responsible travel is a little bit more, we're visiting destinations and we don't want to get them infected right now. I mean, that's kind of what the hot topic on that is. But and I wanted to kind of bring this up also to the group here as well. So responsible travel, we said post-COVID-19, we don't even know when this is over right now. I mean, it's going on. It's here in the United States, it's actually increasing. So, you know, we see a lot of things when people travel to the national parks, to Yellowstone, and what is responsible travel? And I wanted to also ask this to the group, you know, in general, what you want to say about it. Mainly, what we see is like, there is just so much mix match on people that come and flood into destinations. Some of them are wearing masks, some of them don't, you know, and like how does it impact the community and stuff like this? And I think we just want to talk a little bit about the things what we see right now, and feel free, anything you guys have experienced. I know, Adam, for example, you were in Yellowstone like a few weeks ago, then I was just last week. A few weeks ago you said, oh, no one was there. It was the best experience I've ever had.
We had complete different experiences, it sounded like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but what I wanted to just, maybe I wanted to ask the first group to the group just a question about responsible travel. So when you guys look at travel destinations, we work with a few, but in general, where do you say, do we have some kind of winners or losers this year? And I don't want to use that term, winners or losers, because I think everyone is losing this year, but who are the ones that are doing better right now in general as a travel destination here in the US? Is it more the rural communities? I mean, what do you guys see? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of interest in rural communities, places with wide open spaces where, you know, you're taking a look at their content and you get a sense of having elbow room. And I think that that's what a lot of people are looking to kind of escape this storyline to get to. Fortunately, that's a lot of the places that we work with, and so they're able to maximize the opportunity is not the right word for it, but, you know, take advantage of what people need right now. And it's just a matter, I think, of what you were saying as far as that being a mutually beneficial relationship, because if you need to get out of the big city because you're uncomfortable and you're stressed out and there are too many people too close and cases are rising around you, yeah, I mean, it's good for your mental health to go, you know, explore a place like Lander, Wyoming, and get away from people and have lots of room. But you have to carry that mentality from where you come from with you, and that means bringing your own water bottle and drinking from it. That means carrying a mask and wearing it in public places. That means, you know, choosing the events and the locations you go to so that you can, you know, continue to disperse for your sake and for the community's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what's so interesting about these kind of destinations also, is they seem to be, you know, a little bit more safer for people in major metropolitan areas to kind of escape to, but also they don't have the infrastructure capabilities to handle some large surge in number of cases. So, you know, it really does come down to responsibility of, you know, travelers who are coming into a destination, and also destinations having a plan in place to responsibly host people who are looking to travel. So it's this relationship almost between the destination and the visitor, and it has to be, you know, kind of an agreed upon exchange of an experience.
And I think communicating about that is a big piece. You know, like, we all think we know when we need to be wearing a mask or not, or when we need to be staying far apart from people or not, but different places have different expectations of that. And just for an example, yesterday I went downstairs to the local Lander bake shop and I forgot my mask and I ordered a sandwich and I stood back from people and then I left with my sandwich. And then the next day, they posted a couple of posts this morning I saw on their social media channels about their requirement. They're now requiring people to wear masks in the shop, and I totally respect that. I forgot mine yesterday. I felt weird about it, But now they're clearly communicating, like, if you forgot your mask, you need to call us and order your sandwich, and that's fine. So that communication as far as what the expectation is, you know, I'm a local, but as a visitor, it's good to know, like, what do you want me to do to help you out? And that's part of the messaging point that destinations have to adjust to quickly, like every other week.
Yeah, and it's important for destinations to establish that connection for communication early. Where I used to live, you know, I lived around and worked on a ski resort, and you could post signs cautioning people about certain things to be careful of, and somebody would walk right past it, not notice it. It's clearly displayed. You know, when people travel, they get kind of wrapped up in this experience, and they leave work, they're not in that kind of engaged mindset. They're just a little freer, enjoying the experience. Maybe they don't pay attention to certain things. So establishing that connection early and saying, hey, these are our expectations. We would appreciate you following some of this to keep us safe, to keep you safe. And it's important, I think, to try and establish that connection as early as you can. Make sure people are aware of this as they come into your destination. And it's also difficult too. What do you do when people are in your destination not following some of those policies? Do you want your citizens to approach them, confront them, remind them of those expectations? Is there a reasonable expectation that people will do that respectfully? Because the other thing you don't want is people to have a bad experience and a negative impression about your destination. So where is that balance point?
Right.
How do you approach that? How do you do that? It's a very challenging thing, especially with the responses that some people have to being confronted about some of that. Because certainly, you know, people are entitled to their own beliefs about something like this, but when it comes to presenting a reasonable, unreasonable risk to a small community, it should be something that people pay attention to. So it's this very difficult thing, especially for destinations to approach, create guidelines for, follow up on those guidelines. How do you have advocates within your community to support that and try and maintain that while having people from outside your community come in and visit? It's a challenging thing. I don't know that I don't think I have the exact right answer for that, but it's a challenging thing. I think it takes deliberation within your community leaders, having conversations, and awareness to visitors considering coming in, and then also to your residents. Hey, this is what we're going to do, and we need to all be in this together. This is what we've come up with. Maybe open the floor for some dialogue, take ideas in from outside, and just try and do the best you can.
So actually, I have a question, but it's not like a comment on it. So wearing a mask is kind of really where I want to be paying attention right now. First it was like washing hands and stuff like this, which isn't natural given anyways, but I think wearing a mask is a very important part to prevent that spread. Right now, is like when I was in Yellowstone last week, it was the National Park Service that handed out when you drive in. Here's like the guidelines. Please wear a mask at crowded areas. Right? So I went to the crowded areas. I was wearing a mask. Not very enjoyable at a hot day, but so I was wearing it. Like I would say, maybe 1 out of 4 people was wearing a mask. The other ones didn't. Like, just didn't care. Like, and it's outside, so they say, well, just don't get close to the other people. But the problem is we just don't know the impact until we have 2 to 4 weeks later, probably, right? So that's kind of what the problem is. But I'm just curious. I want to ask you guys. I see in Germany right now it's required by law to wear a mask, and it's really, really strict down. Like in the state of Bavaria, you have to wear a mask if you go to the grocery store, if you're outside, wherever it is. do you guys think a city like Lander or any kind of destination could just say you are required to wear a mask and you will get fined if you don't? Is that something that you think would work here in the US? I'm just
I
curious.
think Jackson is actually doing that, Jackson, Wyoming.
Yeah.
And I haven't
Yeah.
read like what the repercussions if you don't wear a mask, like will you just be reminded by an official or will you be fined? I don't know, but
Yeah.
I saw that Jackson is putting that in place, so that will be a perfect case study to find out
Yeah.
how that works.
Yeah, so the city can put an order, a health order in and saying you're required to wear a mask.
I think there's some communities in
Yeah.
Florida doing that also.
Okay, cool. So so I wanted to go a few things down on the list. I wrote some questions, and by the way, so this is Facebook Live. If you have a question you want us to answer in this group, just type it in right now, and Fallon behind the camera will just tell us what the question is. Okay, so let's see. So feel free to ask any questions on that as well. Okay, so the question I have is, who's usually right now traveling? What's the audience? Is it families? Is it younger ones? Is it the older ones? Do you guys see anything in general here in Wyoming traveling through to Yellowstone? I definitely saw the families, and it's that season. But do you think that maybe elderly people are traveling less this year than usual?
It
Yeah.
seems that way. It really, I mean, in my experience from, Yellowstone a few weeks ago, it seemed like a decent balance in mix. I didn't notice anything specifically about particular demographics that seem to be traveling more than others. I think it's people who feel comfortable doing that. I think, especially right now, it's kind of a personal choice for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
If it seems unsafe to do so and you're not willing to take that risk, I don't think those folks are traveling. And I think that's a good decision for people who want to make that decision. I think if you can be safe and responsible about how and where you're traveling to, I think those folks are okay to get out and travel. And then, you can't ignore the elephant in the room that there's some people who don't care and they're just gonna go for it. That just seems to be kind of part of the mix. And it's hard to know exactly who those folks are, the people who haven't been as cautious as you would like them to be, but undoubtedly they are out there. And that's why, as responsible travelers, citizens of communities that are hosting travelers, you kind of need to be cautious as well and understand that there are those people out there that are traveling in that manner, not taking the kind of precautions that maybe they should be, and try and do the best you can to protect yourself, your family, and your community.
Yeah. I mean, I think who's traveling right now is, I just see a little bit, for some reason, I always was paying attention to the millennial audience. For some reason, I just don't think they travel that much right now, but that's just maybe a little personal thing. Maybe it's not right, but I just naturally see a lot of families right now, and it's summer season here, and then the 4th of July is coming up. I mean, that's really the biggest travel weekend of the year, pretty much. Maybe Thanksgiving, 4th of July. We'll just watch these things, and who's traveling, and it's very interesting to see from a global perspective. America is doing things differently. In some areas it's very much required to wear a mask, and here it's more about it's recommended but not required, and it's a natural country to say don't tell me what to do, and I'm trying to do this on my own, and I think that's kind of what we see right now and see how that entails. I mean, I think rural travel is definitely has a big uptick this year, and we know like state parks were 40% up this year, right? Something like this.
Yeah, it was 160% of last year's visitation.
There we go. So that's.
Way
I mean, I
up.
think anything that's park related, outdoors is really big right now, and I think it continues like that. Yeah, so the one thing that I wanted to also ask as a question is how could responsible travel look post-COVID? Like, do you think, and I asked the same question to someone else earlier and they said no, but I'm just curious if you guys are different. But they said, do you think anything will change post-COVID-19 when kind of we have a vaccine in place and somehow we resume back to normality? Do you think what would change from a typical traveler? I mean, do people will naturally avoid over-tourism destinations, like crowded areas, because they're just naturally afraid of this, right? Or is there some kind of bus travel? Is that something that will just resume as it was before? I mean, I'm just curious, what do you guys think? So I've asked an expert and they said, no, nothing will change, things will just go back to normal as it was before. But I'm just curious, do you think anything will change past travel, like behavior-wise, any travel type, preferring travel destinations?
I think that
Yeah.
it depends a lot on what travelers we're talking about. So living in Lander, the impact of COVID-19 on us personally has been pretty small. You know, when we were all supposed to be self-isolating, we all worked from home, but other than that, we all still got to go for our hikes without seeing very many people, or go to the grocery store with a mask and still not see very many people. Like, it's a small town, life wasn't dramatically different, and I don't think any of us knew very many people or know very many people, knock on wood yet, who've been sick. So I think if you live in a place that has a higher rate of cases or mortality rate, you're going to have a more personal connection to this storyline, and that's going to last with you longer. So I think some demographic or some locations maybe are going to have a different approach to travel for a longer period of time than other locations, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that for some travelers, it could change their mindset a little bit and help them to be more conscious and considerate of their impact on the places they're visiting. I think for the first time, some travelers probably experienced having to look up, you know, what are the guidelines in this place I want to visit? Are they saying, okay, it's fine if you travel here now, or no, we'd rather you wait for later? So I think, I hope that for some travelers, it's changed that mindset of just the impact they're having on the destination, and being aware of how that destination feels about visitors at that time. So I hope that's something that carries over post-COVID as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just putting some things out, like the cruise industry. I mean, we don't work with clients with the cruise industry, but I don't think that it will come back that way as it was before, because a lot of customers had a horrible experience. You know, they were quarantined within the cruise ship, they couldn't get docked to a destination. So, oh my gosh, if that happens again, who knows? It could happen to me. So I think as an industry, there's also the responsibility on these companies that really make sure that their customers are safe, and also the governments that they say, well, you have an infected cruise ship, but you should be able to dock. I mean, you should not say we're not docking you. I'm sorry. That's just bad experience on a destination. You know, I mean, it was like heartbreaking when this cruise ship came to San Francisco with all the sick Americans, and they weren't allowed to get in. I mean, it was just so. There's some things where I think the cruise industry definitely is in trouble, and we'll see how that resumes again. You know, I think airline travel will also be maybe different. I don't know. Maybe we'll just see people are not wanting to travel by air so much because they're getting used to car travel again. You know, that's when air travel was the fastest growing type of transportation worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? Maybe it is coming back quickly, but I just think what COVID does, and it's really simple. It's an accelerator on trends. That's what I call it, accelerator on trends. So if we said RV travel is a trend, then it accelerates that trend, right? So it's like if we say a trend is buying stuff online, COVID accelerates the trend. like it's boom, like something that's a trend. It's just going from 20 miles per hour to 100 miles per hour, something like this. And I think, and it goes in both directions. So things that were not working, that's also putting it literally out to death. In terms of, you know, I think the over tourism was something that was challenging, and it was a trend that was negative. But in a way, for COVID, I think I just doubt it will come back to that level as it was before. You know, and who knows? But I just think, yeah, these are definitely things we'll see. Right now, so we did a podcast about the pandemic on plastic. So right now we just naturally produce more trash than usual. I mean, it's really fair to say that. And it's because you cannot use you can only use takeout for paper cups, and you can only use the plastic bags to the grocery store and stuff like that. So naturally we produce more trash. And I think hopefully that will kind of change, that we're getting back to the habits of not minimizing things, but car travel is way up, right? And air travel is way down. So, but naturally that more people driving cars, it just pollutes the air a lot more, I think, than just people being in a bus or in some other areas. So in a way, we have some negative trends through COVID that on the kind of responsible travel side, and to where we kind of hopefully see a change again. So yeah, so I have a few other things on here, but what do you guys think? Anything else we should maybe talk about?
I thought there was one more, could be major change to the industry. When a lot of places were shelter in place, people were working at home kind of end of March, all throughout the month of April. Some of the campaigns that we were still running, we saw people digesting huge amounts of travel related content, dreaming about when they could travel again, and that behavior exposed them to new destinations that either they had never heard of or never considered traveling to. So I think people are becoming aware, more aware of the variety of options that are out there in regards to travel, and maybe they're not just considering primary bigger destinations anymore, but rather it could have converted them in a way to want to seek out these more enriching experiences and fulfilling experiences that you can find in a small community. You know, the local culture, the local art scene, local food, things of that nature, and just more of a rich experience that you can have in a small town. It may have opened people up into the kinds of destinations and the kind of travel that they'll consider in the future. It's still kind of early to tell whether that'll be an ongoing trend or not, but I think at least the door was busted open a little bit for small towns to connect with audiences that have never considered them before. And that's an incredible opportunity for small towns. As long as they can manage it, make sure that, you know, a small town doesn't get overrun, you know, whether the pandemic's still going on or not. You know, small towns, a huge influx of people that they just don't have the capacity to handle definitely has negative effects. As long as they can manage that, and it could provide an opportunity for small towns to thrive after this is all done.
Yeah, we talked about carrying capacity a while ago. It's a word that's highly criticized and also cherished both. Like,
Yeah.
I think carrying capacity is when, you know, there's just so many people that fit in a place, but how in the world can you ever implement this with a place that's kind of public and open? You know, it's very difficult. I mean, carrying capacity at a ski resort is really easy, right? So you just say you don't sell lift tickets anymore, or at a national park, but if it's a city that's nearby an interstate and just people driving by all the time, it's really hard to kind of manage that. Or like bigger cities like Denver, or you know, stuff like that. Yeah, so I want to bring a few final thoughts on this as well, but I wanted to just discuss and get your opinion on this. So we read an article, and this came from Fallon, our intern, by the way. So thanks so much for sharing this article. So it was architecturaldigest.com. It's a website. And they wrote an article about how COVID-19 will change the way we travel, right? So, I mean, that's kind of what we want to talk about it anyways today. So So I'm just highlighting a few things what they talked about. We published that article on our Facebook page, so you can see it there as well. So they say a slow return will happen. It's not going to be a fast recovery. So, you know, once we have vaccination place, like as a lot of people say, oh, this is going to come really, really quickly back. So they would rather say it's going to be a slow return, building back the confidence of people who travel, maybe people that have less discretionary income. So, and I'm debating this also a little bit. I think there's a lot of people that are really, really tired of just being at home. I just talked to our videographer and he said, I just gotta get out of Wyoming. I've been here for 2.5 months. I gotta go somewhere. I'm going on a road trip to, you know, Idaho and Oregon. But, so I think there will be a slow recovery on tourism, that's what they say, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it gonna be fast? What do you think? Is it gonna be fast recovery, slow recovery? What do you think?
I think it'll be slow but steady.
Slow but steady?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you might see an early little blip up as people seize the opportunity to get out and feel like it's safe and appropriate, but I think just the vast spectrum of how people feel about anything, any subtopic of COVID-19 that you bring up, there's such a wide set of responses to any topic that I think that's how you'll see people come back to travel too.
Mhm.
You'll see some people get really excited and go for it as soon as they can. I mean, they already are on the road, they're in Yellowstone. But then it's just gonna, I think, just kind of slowly follow smoothly.
It's hard to know really, because I think certainly a lot of places are just beginning to feel the economic impact of an economy shutting down for 2.5 months. There's certainly still impact to be felt from that, probably throughout the rest of the year, if not into 2021. But I think we also have to consider, as humans, we get this weird herd mentality where as soon as something starts to go in one direction, that's what gives people the confidence. So perhaps it's a slow start, but I think to some degree, if we start to see things getting better in the way of decreasing cases in places, or if people really start to figure out what kinds of destinations are safe to travel to and how to do it safely, and this is proven with data or metrics or anything like that, then it could be something that kind of takes off. And
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to tell. We're still in the pretty early stages of trying to get on the positive side of everything shutting down for a couple months and trying to get the number of cases to decrease. I think it's still kind of early, but there's certain possibilities out there.
It's fun, we're all going on the record with our best guesses, so that's,
Yes.
that's great.
Okay,
I think
so-
you two both have to guess too,
Okay,
just so that we
then I ask you, like, fast or slow recovery, what do you think?
I'm kind of on the same page as Casey on a slow but steady, and I think what she was mentioning earlier about just a different perspective on it based on where you live, and I think the population centers, the people there have a pretty significantly different perspective on it than we do in rural Wyoming, and so maybe they won't travel as soon as some of us will, just because their experience with it has been different. So I think we've already seen people are starting to travel, definitely here in Wyoming and other surrounding states. So I think it will be slow, but people will start traveling in a good number soon, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna be faster than we think. I don't know why, but I saw 9/11, but that was big. I mean, everything was on hold, but that was short timeline wise. And then also the financial crisis, that actually some destinations completely gained from that too, that just were more affordable to visit. Okay, so other things, hotels. I just want to touch base on this. So they say Airbnb will win, the average hotel that's down the street will have less visitation. That's what they say. What do you guys think? Is the vacation ownership type thing, or like Airbnb, something like this, is that gonna really take off a lot more than the other hotels?
I could see that happening, sure.
Because they say about safety and, you know, you have less exposure to other people if you're in the house versus
I think
exposure
anybody that has traveled a decent amount, either for work or for leisure, has walked into kind of an icky hotel room at some point or another. I think generally, certainly I haven't stayed in the same volume of Airbnbs, but most of them seem generally cleaner, perhaps less trafficked than your regular everyday hotel room.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. I haven't seen any data or indication that you know is a progressing trend.
Yeah.
I think they both take second and third to campgrounds and RV sites.
So you think campground or V-sites are the winners?
Yeah, I mean, you're in total control. The thing is,
Yeah.
of like, the conversation between Airbnbs and hotel rooms is, hotel rooms have specifically trained staff with their protocols. An Airbnb may feel cleaner, but you don't know for sure exactly what cleaning supplies they use.
Yeah.
So I think people could land on either side of that. Whereas if you're in total control of your space and how clean it is and how close it is to the next person, and who touched it last, it's just you and your family or just you, I think people are still gonna go that route for a little way, for a little while anyway. And then I don't know where people will land on Airbnbs and hotels.
Okay.
It may be a generational thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next thing, what they think is past COVID is big changes for aviation. We think there will be a lot more precautions being taken with planes and flying passengers. I think the big thing, in my opinion, is let's talk about long distance travel, like sitting in a plane for 10 hours, right, from Europe to the United States. There's no way you could wear a mask for 10 hours. I could never imagine this. Like, you would just faint. Right? I mean, so I think to have that back, and this is what they're doing now already in Frankfurt, is they're doing the testing at the airport before you board, and it's attached to your plane ticket that you've been tested in the last 24 hours or even less, that you don't have COVID, and then they'll let you in the plane. And I think that's what we'll see for the long distance flights coming back.
You think any travel destinations could require a positive test before they let you into their community? I don't know of anybody,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, testing has kind of always been the key, right?
Yeah.
What was it that Iceland, how was Iceland doing their testing? Weren't they doing something?
Well, Iceland works closely with the airline because you can only get there with an airline.
Yeah.
So they say you need to be tested before, and then if you don't have the test, they have an instant machine where they test you before they let you in. Yeah, they do this as a full destination, and they just started this mid-June, so that's kind of really interesting how if that really turns out well for them.
Sure.
But in my opinion, that's one thing how this could resume with international travel. And with the airline industry, it's really about, I mean, first they were thinking about taking on the middle seat, but I don't think that that's a long-term solution. A plane ticket would be $3,000,
Yeah.
you know, if not more, because, I mean, can you manage?
Yeah, in a 50-row airplane, you're taking out 2 seats on each side. That's 100 seats at $300 a pop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a decent hit for the airline industry.
Which wasn't exactly doing,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
rolling in the dough beforehand.
I know.
Do you think there will be any, sorry, this is a little bit of
Sure.
a tangent, but do you guys think that on the tone of responsible travel, you know, with all this talk about not going anywhere if you're not feeling well or think you may have been exposed, like, I think we've all probably gotten on a plane or gone on a vacation when we already had a cold or maybe a little bit of a flu without like thinking too much about it. Do you think that individuals will start to think differently before they go to a destination as a result of this kind of conversation, or do you think people will go back eventually to, oh, it's just a cold, I'll get on the plane anyway?
Well, if there's no risk of, keeping going a global pandemic, I think people will probably just say, oh, it's just a cold, I think.
I think probably so too.
But they do measure fever right before you board a plane now. I've seen this even with regional flights here. They have a fever thermometer, like
Sure.
Frontier Airlines.
Yeah.
Like, not that that's a great airline, but like that's what they do to protect their passengers in a way, to measure fever with the machine on everyone. Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think there's got to be something coming back, and so I also want to make a very interesting statement on vaccine. I think, I mean, international travel will resume once we have a vaccine. I don't think, we don't have a vaccine and whatever happens in 2 weeks, we don't know, so no one will go, right? I mean, no one will say, I'm flying all the way over the other side of the planet, and if all hell breaks loose, then you just, are stuck there, what happened before, and then you can't even get back. I've seen a documentary, I actually want to mention this, that someone who was stuck in a terminal for 6 weeks because he flew from Cairo to Germany, to Frankfurt, an airport, and he got the visa approved in Cairo to start his exchange program, and then COVID happened literally that day, and the government shut down all entries, and then he was stuck at the international terminal in Frankfurt, couldn't enter Germany or the European Union, but all flights back were cancelled, so he was there, he couldn't even get back. So he was there for 6 weeks or longer, waiting it out in the international terminal because he couldn't get there. So there's this fear of people when they travel with airplanes long distance, they get stuck. And that will not go away until we have a vaccine in place. And I think that vaccines, I mean, I'm a little bit optimistic that I think there's going to be a vaccine. That's just my opinion, because it seems like it's not mutating much or severely, that the virus. So that's a good sign that it's not that we have a vaccine, but the vaccine will not be 100% effective. There's no way. We maybe get a 70% success rate on the vaccine, and that's great, But we just have to understand as an industry is like, yes, like this precautious travel, especially long distance, is a huge thing. I think we are still challenged by this, and it will be next year just as much as it is this year, where people are just saying they just absolutely don't want to get stuck in a destination. Yeah. So okay, so I think aviation we covered. So let's do one more and then we call it. Okay, so we want to talk about. We talked about the cruise industry. That's in trouble for sure. Over tourism, sustainability. How will limits on visitors influence over tourism? Talked about this as well. I think, and then the other question we had is, do you think that travelers in general will become more conscious of environmental impacts, like in the travel? And I think we can take this a little bit on the greater level. A virus is a natural disaster. It's like a hurricane, like in the same impact, right? I mean, it shuts everything down just a lot longer. And I think people are getting more and more used. In the past, I think people got very used to natural disasters. You have a hurricane. Okay, you cancel your flight. You don't go there, but 3 months later, it's all forgotten and you move on. Right? That's kind of how wildfire, the same thing, right? So we had a huge wildfire all over the place in Australia, and like 3 months later, no one talks about it anymore, and COVID came. But do you think in general, like the environment, the travel, that something will change? People will just be much more conscious about saving the planet past this? I know that's a really big closing question here, but relevant.
I think it has the opportunity to affect the way a lot of people look at traveling, impact of travel, not just in regards to the environmental impact, but being a little more conscientious of how we travel and the decisions and actions that we make when we travel. We've had a lot of conversations internally. I've had a lot of conversations with clients on the sustainable travel thing, and how do you approach it? How do you have these conversations with potential visitors about making these recommendations? And it's again this this really difficult balance point you have to find where you don't want to come off as shaking your finger at somebody. This is what you need to do. That's going to turn people off, and you're not going to listen. But if you can make good recommendations on choices that you can make while traveling and try and convey the internal benefit that you get from making those choices and traveling a certain way, being conscientious about your waste and the impact that that has on an environment, specifically beautiful rural outdoor destinations, but also how you choose to spend money when you travel and the disbursement of those dollars back into the local community. This presents a great time to open that conversation again, saying, you know, as everything seems to be changing, maybe there's opportunities that we can make these changes for the better, and have more positive impact on the places we go, the communities we visit, and just provide people information on if you spend $20 at, you know, a chain restaurant, hotel, whatever, how much of that money is really redistributed back into the local community. Whereas if you choose to eat at a locally owned restaurant, stay at a locally owned hotel, how much of that money is redistributed back into the community that you're staying, and what is the impact of that? And that makes people feel good to, you know, in this world where it seems like it's harder and harder to have, you know, real measurable impact on the world. These are small ways that people can make a big difference in providing people that opportunity and giving them the tools and the knowledge and the information on how to generate this impact. I think that kind of stuff's moving for people, some people, and the people who are seeking to have more of an impact like that. Even people who maybe have considered it before but never really did anything. This is an accelerator, right? You know, maybe this is going to push people more in that direction and make them want to make some of those changes in their behavior a little bit and have more impact. And I think it's a good time for destinations to find good ways to make recommendations. Again, don't shake your finger at people, but say, hey, here's some of the things we'd like you to do. And if we all do this, this place will be even more beautiful, bigger and better for you to come back and visit again.
That's kind of what I was thinking with, I think there's an opportunity, but we have to, like, destinations have to seize it, because I think COVID could also just be a huge distraction from all of these conversations that we had been having about sustainable travel. And you're thinking more about how am I gonna stay clean and safe and away from people, and did I pack enough masks and enough Purell and all of that. I think it could just be a distraction, and then eventually you go back to your earlier habits. But there's an opportunity to tap into that feel-good component, especially if more people are visiting wild places and get to see the potential impacts of, you know, of littering and of traveling, and of, you know, single-use plastics and all of those things. You think more about those things when you're in a big, open, empty space than you do maybe when you're in a line to see a show on Broadway. So there's an opportunity to say, you know, to come up with your messaging where it's like, this space is beautiful, it's where you want to be right now, you have to please help us take care of it so we can continue to enjoy it. So I think it's something that you have to intentionally curate.
I was actually just having that conversation with one of our clients last week. You know, I'm from a city originally. You know, Cincinnati's a decent sized city, and it wasn't until I moved to the mountains in California and you see a single piece of trash on the ground and you're like, oh, that's terrible. How awful for someone to do that. Whether it was intentional or not, you recognize it more. And maybe now that people are being more exposed to these kind of naturally beautiful, pristine areas, they'll be a little more conscientious. When you're in an urban environment, major metropolitan area all the time, you just kind of get used, there's trash. you know, and it's not as pristine of an environment like it is in places like here in Wyoming. You don't notice it. You don't even know that you don't notice it. It's just like this blind spot for people, and it's not until you get exposed to these kind of areas where you're like, wow, we really need to try and take care of places like this. This is beautiful. I couldn't imagine, you know, a place like this being tainted with you know, trash or waste or anything like that. So maybe that opportunity that people may be having to visit, you know, rural places, will wake them up to how important some of that stuff is.
Yeah, but that's a good thought with community pride. Like if you're proud of a community you live here, you take care of that place. And
Sure.
naturally, in a town where you love and it's beautiful, the scenery, you just naturally say, I'm proud to live here. This is almost a privilege, right?
And I want to take care of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think from a closing statement, what I want to say is, and Danella, do you want to say anything about this? That's up to you.
I kind of mentioned my thoughts earlier,
Yeah.
and I think that I hope that this impacts people's mindset and just makes them more considerate and conscious of their impact on communities and destinations they visit. But I also think Casey makes a great point too, that destinations need to focus on encouraging people to be responsible travelers and visitors to their destination, and making recommendations. Like Adam said, that's a fine line. You don't want to be shaking your finger and telling them, you know, we can't do this, but making recommendations for how they can be the best visitor in your destination. We saw several destinations during COVID say, no, please don't come now, come later. And it seemed like that messaging was generally well received. And so, you know, that should give them a little bit of confidence going forward that they can be the authority on their destination and say, you know, if you want to visit, please do this, or we suggest you don't do this. And so I hope that that's something destinations also get more comfortable with going forward as well.
Yeah. So I think so this is kind of what it's relatable to this topic. But so in the past, so when travel and recreation started, it was really, let's say in the 50s, it was recreation. So people traveled because they want to go somewhere to relax from work, recreation. And then out of recreation it came into kind of a party industry, like it became more hedonism, and then it was like going to beaches and just having fun and party and not sleeping, and just, so recreation was a different recreation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, and this is kind of what we saw until recently, it was the lifestyle trend. You just said it was an identity to go. You go to a place to identify yourself. Like, you are a special person if you go every year to a ski resort and go skiing, and you show this because this is a lifestyle, right? So this, you're cool in a way. So that's, and I think that was just until recently, and the millennials kind of initiated that latest trend that I think is now contribution. So it goes from starting from recreation to more hedonism, then it went to lifestyle, and I think now it's contribution. And I think we have a chance now with, especially the millennials, with social media, everyone is looking at this, right? To really say, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of this destination. I want to visit this, and I want to have this as kind of little bit my, as you said, little treat as my own destination, as I would live there, as a resident. I want to be as a resident. I want to be a contributor to this community. And I think that is, by sure, a huge trend that we will see out of this pandemic coming. So people will more and more just travel and then have a deeper relationship with that place. I think we saw early signs on this already when we saw, well, please be a small tourism community, and once this is all over, visit us, because we're losing jobs and we're having restaurants closing. We need you as visitors, and I think that message was heard. People want to go and spend the money in a community because they care about this community. And I think that is for sure a positive trend that comes out of it. But yeah.
Well, we've had these conversations internally a lot before, and with the rise of more focused digital marketing campaigns, you have the ability to do more of this for small communities like where we live. And I think this is a trend that will continue. It's not about connecting with and inviting any visitor. It's about connecting with and inviting the right visitor.
Right.
And as people, as destination marketers, as DMOs, learn more about how you can do that, and that these tools are out there for you, and you can actually do it fairly affordably, then you can start connecting with the audience that is most likely to respect your destination the way you hope they would. And you can do that with kind of messaging and exactly who you're looking for and what sort of experiences you're looking to promote. You can identify and target that audience, and it'll create the impact in your area and in your community just by employing some of those tactics. And that's great.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we concluded here with the session for the travel exchange. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys like this, please hit the like button, comment on it. If you think you want to see more of those sessions, give us some topic ideas you think are really relevant. You know, we have very creative group here. We love to talk, we love to share thoughts, and anything where we can help ultimately the industry and our clients just on education. Right now we are in a situation where we don't have a lot of conferences, so this is kind of our conference right here where we talk to people, and I think this will continue like this for a while. So yeah, so thanks so much for the fireside chat. We will be in touch again with another episode, and here we go. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.